Okay, it is currently 5:39 on Tuesday, the 21st of July, 2020, and we're going to have the Technology Committee meeting, first one we've done in a while. I'm Julia Olafson. In attendance we have
Scott Matz.
Brett Cooper. Preston McKnight.
Okay, and so we have a lot to talk about. Status updates.
All right. Starting on the list, our student information system migration. Last time we talked, we were about to begin it, and we are now about to finish it. So, just like that, it all went well. But the majority of our office staff have completed their training. The teacher training will occur in August. We will be granting access to the public in early August as well. Right now, the majority of our work is focused on cutting over all of our external systems to receive information out of Infinite Campus rather than eSchool. So now, most of our systems are being populated with data out of Infinite Campus, so that transition is largely complete. We're doing data validation, but there's no more data to move from eSchool to campus, so now it's fine-tuning. So overall, that process has gone smooth as it goes. There's some fine-tuning along the way, but we didn't encounter any major issues, so that's been a relief for us.
Since Ms. Bell is a new member of the board,
yep.
The 50-cent tour of why we needed to do it
yep.
for her, please.
So previously, eSchool Plus was our system. The public knew it as Home Access Center. That was hosted by the BCIU, and we've been with them for probably about 12 years. However, they were acquired by an outside company, and in that acquisition, it became more important for them for money to sell it off at a later date. So we were going to see tens of thousands of dollars in increased costs. So Infinite Campus not only brought us better functionality, it kept us with the IU, but we were able to do it at a cost savings as well. So that impacts the grade book, that impacts scheduling, the special ed side of things with IEP Plus. It's really the back end of really what we do from a student perspective. So that will launch with the start of this new school year. We completed eSchool in the old one, and then at the start of the new year, that will become our new grade book, our new parent portal, our new everything, basically. Yep.
Yeah, and the cutover was already scheduled to be happening, starting before the end of the school year, before we didn't come back in March. So it was already well underway. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Under the various projects, our telecommunications, so that's switching from Windstream as our phone provider. And in June, the board executed the agreement with Ironton for our phone service. So that is also in progress. Right now, they're scheduling for the physical installs to come into the buildings and run phone lines and the physical equipment. Once that's complete, they will switch our numbers from Windstream to Ironton, which is basically the equivalent process of switching your cell phone provider. They have to change the number from one to the other. So,
are there going to be any outages?
There will most likely be an outage in the form of probably on a Friday when we're not in business.
Okay.
But yes, there would be downtime to switch from one to the other. Probably a half day at most. That's allowing for.
And we talked about that we would be able to keep all of our old numbers, right?
Yes. Yeah. No. It's other than that day when we poured over.
Sure.
It's pretty much a transparent process to the public. They don't realize it. On the IT staffing side of things, we've had a smooth transition to Nimble Technologies for our help desk support. We have 3 of the 4 positions on site. They were on site as of July 1st, and that 4th position was delivered. There's one of the staff members, we were determining whether they could fill a level 1 role or a level 2. That person ultimately we evaluated to suit the needs for that level 2 position, so now we'll fill in the remaining level 1 position. So we should be fine for the start of the year, and they've been awesome. really for us for the summer knocking out projects. It's been anything but a normal summer for us.
No, have they been doing a mixture of telework and on-site?
They've been exclusively on site.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Prior to the middle of June, we were doing telework, but once June hit, most of our work focuses on site.
Okay.
And I'll segue to that actually as we talk about summer projects.
Summer projects.
Yep. So again, that's largely been handled by Nimble out in the building. So that's removing computers, that's receiving the computers, that's the iPads. Obviously, is a substantial part, and we've been hitting our marks, in every case thus far. So we feel we're in a good spot right now. Obviously, some additional projects keep coming on board, and we're adapting accordingly. But they came in with the necessary skill set to hit the ground running, and then we're training up where necessary on our system. So that was, as far as the transition goes, that probably went as smooth as possible. And from a summer work perspective, all things considered, it's going overall fairly smooth for us. So I'll touch on the iPads a little bit just down the list on that front. There's a little bit more to that one, but equipment deliveries are almost complete for us. We should have our last delivery next week, so we anticipate being on target as far as setup goes for classroom computers and that sort of thing. A new item for this meeting is the item labeled Internet RFP. So the district participates in a consortium for internet service. We purchase it with, I believe it's 15 other districts in the county through the BCIU. That agreement is up at the end of the upcoming school year. So the IU is out for bid on internet, and similarly, we have our own document out to see if there's any cost savings going directly or with the number of devices coming in, what the cost of a secondary connection would be. If for some reason the IU connection went down, we at least have some uptime to fall back on. So we have not done an RFP for internet in my time in leadership and really in my time in the district. The current RWAN agreement is 5 years old, so it's well due just to evaluate prices so we can see what that looks like. Historically, the RWAN has been competitive, but vendors are definitely getting that much more competitive on an individual basis as well, so we're anxious to see how that pricing comes. That would be a transition for July of next year, so that's about a year out for us until things would happen there.
Are you looking to put out 2 requests, one with for use for all the buildings at like the top of where we need to be if we were to be the primary carrier, and then another one as a secondary?
Yeah. So we basically we designed it for right now. Our main internet connection comes into the high school. The middle school would be a secondary location that would make sense for us just geographically. And
I meant that you had said that we haven't decided at this point if we're going to stay with the BCIU.
Yep.
And if you also said that you might want to have a backup if that ever went down. Is that RFP like for both?
Yes. So
situations.
The reason I touch on this secondary physical location is if we had a secondary connection, we would bring that into another building location, just so if fiber gets cut on 724, 662 has a different route coming in. So it would be, so it's yes to all those questions. 2 different locations, also in different increments. So the full-on capacity, a lesser capacity, and we worded it to split it up, because if we went with a single provider, chances are their fiber follows the exact same path. So we could have 2 connections, one at the high school, one at the middle school, and they both go down because we were using the same provider's network equipment. So we have a couple different scenarios there for us to be able to play around with once that information comes back. And
current internet carrier through the BCIU is?
They have 3 different vendors on the back end of that. The IU is our internet provider, but Comcast,
I see. So,
Nextel.
So we just consider them to be our vendor to be BCIU.
Yeah,
okay.
Correct. Yep. Before I move on to the iPads, just any other general questions on those various projects? On the iPad front, so that's, since we last spoke, that's expanded from a 6 to 8 initiative to a K to 8 initiative. We have the majority of those devices tagged and inventoried, so they're ready to go into students' hands. We're really at the point of finalizing the actual logistics of getting them in the hands of the students. So we finalized a plan with Mrs. Rexroad for distribution to make sure that the kids are separated and that sort of thing. And now we're working on the plan for the K to 5 in-classroom iPads. The 6 to 8, in a perfect world, the 6 to 8 devices would always go home, like the high school, and then the K to 5 would be in classroom, obviously, and the situation we're in, those devices would go home depending on phases and whatnot to ensure standard device access for our students.
Okay.
So we are developing the training plan for the K to 5 buildings to get them up to speed. The 6 to 8 buildings had largely completed their training prior to the shutdown, so we have just some more house cleaning items to cover with them once they come back on how to properly monitor the iPads and that sort of thing. At the K to 5 level, we will stick with Google Classroom, which they rolled out during the shutdown in this spring, and the secondary buildings will remain on Schoology on that front. So speaking about the devices, on the blended learning front, I'll tag in Mr. McKnight if he has anything he wants to add here, but we have a cohort of approximately 40 to 45 faculty members that we're working with for a pilot on the blended learning front, so allowing our teachers to receive training to deliver instruction fully online, asynchronously, or synchronously via we'll call it a remote center. They'll have a webcam, they'll be able to interact with students. The students will be able to see the teacher in the classroom. And really this is building up to probably item number 8, that to allow our faculty to deliver online learning and virtual learning. So we'll be focusing a lot on what does that design look like in Schoology, Google Classroom, any learning management system, how you structure your classroom in brick and mortar versus online to facilitate discussion, collaboration, feedback. Those things look a little bit differently. So Mrs. Treehouse will be working with that group on a dedicated plan that ultimately will be able to roll out to all of our staff. But this group will be our model group to work through any other logistical issues and serve as the model for other teachers for their class layouts and that sort of thing. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would just say that 45, that number, allows us to deliver, Dr. Cooper's meeting with the association on next week. So some of this is a little ambiguous, in the survey and so forth. Does that sound better? So it's a little ambiguous intentionally because we still have to have some conversations with the association to lock in a few things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get those conversations from your constituents, saying, well, we need this answer, that answer, make a decision. The information that we put out is as far as we can go until we finalize some of that conversation with the association.
I understand.
So, but the 45 teachers represents the ability to deliver our core curriculum, K to 5, the elementary model, with encores, middle school, one team in 6th grade, one team in 7th grade, one team in 8th grade, will be dedicated on the virtual side, so families who want to get it. Families can move in and out seamlessly. If the student's home for parking for 2 days, or 2 weeks rather, they could be in the class, then they could jump over into the virtual setting, continue to receive instruction from the daily room teacher, daily room curriculum, and then come back into the system. I'm not going to say it's seamless, because there'll be some bumps on that piece as they come in and out, but nevertheless, that's the intention. The high school district, we're going to deliver the core elements, but because there's so many electives, to deliver out the entire virtual model for every single course in high school at this time would be cost prohibitive. So we're having the high school administration look at the highest enrollment encore courses in addition to the regular required we've had very positive response from the staff. Right out of the box, before we even hit this level, we've had 25 or 30 people wanting to do it. So, and that was where we really just sort of run a minimal kind of proof of concept model. All this up in the season, we accelerated it so we can make sure we can handle some of the things with some potentially assertive results if we get a much bigger response to families who want to stay home. So we're positioned the right way. There's a long way to go between the sip and the lip, as they say. Could be some spillage in there. But right now, we think we're in good shape.
Okay, so without going into any details that are beyond the scope of this discussion, because you haven't had those meetings to finalize those details with the teachers. Am I hearing right that, like, say you've got a student at the high school and they take a handful of most of their classes are like, just what everybody else is taking, like U.S. History 1, honors or accelerated, geometry, whatever. But then there's like 1 or 2 classes that they take that are like singleton classes. So if that student were to stay home for quarantine, they might have the opportunity to kind of seamlessly weave in and out with those teachers that would be doing synchronous learning through this pilot program for most of their classes, and then there might be a couple of classes where they'll still have to do some more, like, working directly, getting work directly from like whoever their teacher was in the school, in the high school.
Pretty accurate.
Okay.
State requirements are going to be handled.
Yeah.
The singletons is a kind of referring to, which is a great way to think of this. That piece has to be flushed. Having us is we need to get a collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea. Like at the middle school, you really don't have that issue, but that's the first question I'm going to hear. And well, what about my kid and their specific whatever, and yeah.
We have to wait until Dr. Cooper has that meeting to really solidify.
Fair enough. But the way I described is like a likely scenario or a maybe scenario for a child.
I would say that's a worst case scenario.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
For sure. And
Okay.
we may do better depending on the conversation.
We may be able to do better. Okay. And the idea is if the pilot goes well, regardless of our regardless of our pandemic situation, if this pilot goes well, this will be the basis of us offering our own online learning in the future.
So the transitional model, think of it like building up capacity, as opposed to a pilot building up the ability for people to deliver this way, and that provides maximum flexibility for students, a whole host of options, and still, as our daily with teachers, our daily with curriculum,
Yeah.
which is what the community wants, and here we are.
Right. Okay.
That's where we're headed.
All right. Okay, I know we started a little late. We are coming up on when we're supposed to be starting the next meeting. I know there are a couple people who are here for specifically for facilities, but if we could indulge Mr. Matz hitting the last 3 things at 75 miles an hour.
You got it. And actually, I'm going to jump down to the very last one because that's the most important on that list. So School Pass is an app that Mr. Hurley and I checked out specifically for wellness checks around the COVID situation. So allowing our parents, our students, our staff to check in from home a series of district-defined questions that could screen prior to, so temperature, symptoms, that sort of thing. It reports back to a central database for us, so we would know who has or has not completed it. It does have the ability to prompt an alert for the individual completing it if they were to answer red flag questions.
A red flag question.
They have a temperature of 102 or something of that nature.
Okay.
The additional benefits from the app is beyond just the need for the pandemic. It does offer us some additional capacity on the visitor management front, from parent pickup as well. On the visitor management front, it has similar functionality to our current Raptor system, but again, it integrates that COVID screening functionality into it as well. So as visitors were to come into the building, they have a self-service kiosk. They would have to answer the questions, and again, we could flag, someone was in South Carolina or something of that nature that was on the quarantine list, for us to know that information before granting access to the individual to our buildings. In a non-pandemic scenario, it has that same functionality as well for screening people. It alerts people when they arrive. They have little passes that we can email out that you can enter in that Mrs. Alderson's going to visit the building. You can get the questionnaire in advance, and you can check in that way. And it offers that same capability for parent pickup, which is always a fun time at our elementary level. So parents can, in the app, mark their child as parent pickup on the bus, and it's in that central database again for us. We can mark that the student had left for attendance purposes, and at the secondary level, if a student comes in late, that same kiosk for visitors, they can fill out, and it will send that information into Infinite Campus, the student information system for tardies or anything of that nature. So it gives us just a little bit better workflow. It gives us a lot of touchless capabilities, so we don't have to necessarily interact with individuals in a close capacity. And it offers that ability, during our current situation, but again, it has functionality that we can use pandemic or not for us. So that is a yearly cost for us, and that comes in at $14,725. That's all in with everything: the wellness app, the visitor component, the parent pickup component, and there are actually a couple other modules in there. The ones I'm listing are the ones that we identified as something that we can take advantage of. This is, obviously a July project, so we don't want to roll anything out haphazardly, and we want to make sure it works for our faculty and our office staff and everyone else as well. So that is a decision topic here for us, so that we can execute on that process.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Purchasing what we need to purchase would mean that office administrative staff, secretaries, and the nurse would have access to it on their computers or laptops.
Laptop, any device really, any internet access device. So
right, but we don't issue like secretaries phones. So
no, they would have it on their laptop.
Yeah, okay. So, so if a student that was so will we be downloading the app to the school issued devices?
Yes, yeah, we absolutely do.
And so the students at the 1 through K through K through 5 they would be keeping their devices at school unless so if that obviously those students, maybe most of them, hopefully most of them don't have their own phones. If their parents don't have smartphones, would they be able to access the website from home?
Yep.
If there are any accessibility issues, we will deal with those.
Yeah, it's 100% web-based, so and device agnostic. So it could be an iPad, it could be a phone, it could be a laptop computer. So the internet connection is our only critical piece. You just need an internet connection. The device. So we know that a kid could get on as long as from home, as long as they have Wi-Fi. Yes.
Or they could get in once you get into the school's Wi-Fi system, I guess.
Right, and that's the point. We would be able to see who has or has not completed it, so we'd have that insight that Johnny did not complete it at home. So we would know daily who has or has not. So there's not hoping they do it. We'd actually have that accountability. Insight that
I know we had discussed some of this need before the school year ended. So how much would this impact your budget? Would it have to be an addition for your budget?
It would be. Yeah, it's not something obviously that we plan for. It is.
That's really poor planning. Yeah, something is required. I know we discussed that at the task force meeting.
And the other piece of it is it goes out a text message, then you have to open the app, and you'll get a text message reminder to the parents, like I said time before, the kids go on the bus. And the goal is to keep any kids sort of symptomatic out of school.
Right. And the 14,725, is that every year?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So we'd have to make a decision whether we find it worthwhile if we are not in a pandemic situation in the future.
Yeah, and what I will share with you too, the system, this year, we can't do this, but the Raptor system we have for security, it does the exact same thing as that. We're under contract for Raptor through the rest of this year, so we're not going to see cost savings this year. But the following year, if we choose to, Raptor's about 8,000 or so close. So we have to decide whether the functionality of that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so this year it doesn't do us any good, but if we decide to keep it, we will not.
You might be able to just go with the school pass. I see. Okay, so did you have any questions before we decide? I didn't hear you.
Are there grants for any of this because of COVID, or is there?
We might be able to take advantage of some if they come up.
What's left? I can't promise, like, if you can't promise that, there's stuff in Congress right now, the heroes act, that we may be able to pay for this for everything.
There's no money yet, but we can, we can keep looking. But yeah, if it showed up to help us pay for it, it would be a bonus. We wouldn't be able to guarantee it.
I'm assuming you looked at other systems.
We did, and some systems either didn't have the robust functionality, or really their response and support was lackluster leading up to it. So the fear was that will continue because some of these providers are clearly getting tapped out, as everyone's requesting that same thing. So that was one of the other fears, that lack of response and lack of answers would lead to poor implementation down the line as well.
And did you get to the point where anybody else even gave you a quote on something?
No.
You didn't even get that point.
No.
We need something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need it
we have.
for the year. We'll see what happens. I think that we can.
We agree.
Yeah. So we'll make that a recommendation out of this meeting, that we'll add that to next week's meeting. Anything else that can't wait until next time?
No.
All right. So this meeting we're going to adjourn at 6:07.